Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has turned on the fasten seatbelt sign. If you haven't already done so, please make sure the volume of this podcast is set perfectly to your listening enjoyment. Please take your seat, whether that's on the treadmill, car, sofa, or bed, and buckle in for the last trip. My name is Jamie Beebe, and I'll be your tour guide, recreating someone's last days in paradise. On behalf of myself and everyone behind the scenes, please enjoy the Last Trip podcast. And because nobody likes a long flight to get to where they want to be, let's prepare for takeoff. August Reiger asked his parents for a trip to a Spanish-speaking country to celebrate his high school graduation because he spoke fluent Spanish and loved learning about new cultures. So just weeks after graduation, his parents and younger brother left Oklahoma for a 2-week vacation in Banos, Ecuador. On Father's Day, June 16, 2013, the family set off on a well-maintained hike near their hotel. After a short time, August walked up ahead, planning to meet at the top of an overlook. When the rest of the family arrived at the overlook about 10 minutes later, August had mysteriously vanished and was never seen again. What happened to August Reiger? Ecuador has always intrigued me, specifically the Galapagos Islands. They've always been on my bucket list to visit, but I haven't really found the time to do a whole lot of research on the country until now. So let's learn what makes Ecuador so awesome. Ecuador is located in the northwestern part of South America and named after the equator because it runs right through the country. While you're there, you can visit the Mitad del Mundo, or Middle of the World Monument, near the capital of Quito, where you can actually stand with one foot in each hemisphere. Now that's definitely an Instagram-worthy photo. Ecuador is such a unique country with so many things to see and do that when I go, I'm definitely going to stay for a while to soak it all in. The Galapagos Islands is a well-known UNESCO World Heritage Site, known for their unique wildlife like giant tortoises, marine iguanas, blue-footed boobies, and it's one of the world's top scuba diving destinations. The best way to get to the Galapagos is by air from the mainland. You can also take a cruise, but it's a 3-day cruise to get there and another 3 days to get back. So if you're short on time or don't like cruises, I suggest a quick flight. One of the most famous early visitors in the 1800s was Charles Darwin, who spent 19 days studying the flora and fauna. He then published On the Origin of Species, which introduced his theory of evolution and the Galapagos Islands to the world. The Ecuadorian Amazon is one of the most biodiverse regions on Earth, and visitors can easily explore the jungle using one of the many guided tours to choose from. The Andes Mountains, with volcanoes like Cotopaxi and Chimborazo, are a sure destination for outdoor enthusiasts who enjoy hiking, mountain climbing, and exploring picturesque towns and villages. And if you're headed to the Andes, don't miss the Devil's Nose train ride, or maybe skip it if it sounds too scary. It's a scenic railroad in the Andes that's considered one of the most challenging and impressive sections of railway. The train descends 500 meters in elevation, zigzags through mountain rock, and continues into the Chanchan River Gorge. The views are breathtaking, but many consider it the most dangerous train in the world, so ride at your own risk. August and his family were visiting Banos when he went missing. It's a small town in Ecuador known for its natural beauty, adventure, and thermal baths at the foothills of the Tungurahua volcano, surrounded by lush green mountains and waterfalls. Like I mentioned, Banos is especially famous for its thermal baths, which are heated by the volcano. The waters are rich in minerals and believed to have therapeutic properties. Also, who doesn't want to try out a thermal bath under a volcano? One of the most famous waterfalls in Banos is the Payon del Diablo, or Devil's Cauldron. It's about 262 feet high, but feels a lot taller when you're standing right next to it, because of the massive amount of water that compresses into a narrow channel before exploding out. The force of the water creates a dramatic bowl that holds all the swirling water, thus, the Devil's Cauldron. And of course, the Tungurahua volcano, also called the Black Giant, draws a lot of visitors. It's an active volcano that does erupt once in a while, so keep that in mind. One of the most recent eruptions was from February 26th to March 16th in 2016. And if you're into adventure, Banos is the place to go. There are a lot of hiking and trekking spots, whitewater rafting, rappelling down waterfalls and canyons, ziplining, and mountain biking. If you're looking for something more unique to do, you can visit the Swing at the End of the World, located at La Casa del Arbol. It only costs $1 entrance fee to then swing over a cliff's edge, with the beautiful scenery of rolling hills and the Tungurahua volcano in the distance. The Basilica of the Virgin of the Holy Water is also in Banos. It's a place of pilgrimage for those seeking to thank the Virgin of the Holy Water for her many miracles. The church was started in 1904 and completed 40 years later, built out of volcanic rock in a Gothic style. It's absolutely gorgeous and well worth a visit. August went missing while hiking to the Bella Vista Cross, which is a prominent landmark on a hill overlooking the town of Banos. It's a place where people come to reflect, pray, and appreciate the beauty of their surroundings. And over the years, it's become a cultural icon and a popular tourist attraction. The trail is a moderately challenging trek that takes a couple hours to complete, and it's generally safe and well maintained. Although there is a significant elevation gain as you climb, so you'll want to go at your own pace, bring water, and comfortable shoes. Being that this hike isn't deep in the jungle, or overgrown, or particularly long and difficult, how did August disappear in the blink of an eye without leaving any clues at all? Let's dive in and learn more about August and his family. August Reiger was a smart kid. He grew up in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, with his brother Laith, who was 3 years younger than him. His mom, Rhonda, was an art teacher at Heronville Elementary School, and his dad was a well-known architect. Now, when I say August was smart, I mean he was really intelligent. He graduated in May of 2013, valedictorian from Classen School of Advanced Studies. He was also a National Merit Scholar, an Oklahoma Academic Scholar, and a member of the National Honor Society. Not stopping there, he was offered a full ride at the University of Oklahoma with a Fulbright scholarship, and he was scheduled to start his freshman year that fall. He was in a band, played piano and guitar, was a state science winner, and fluent in Spanish. At the age of 18, he truly had the rest of his life ahead of him. August was well known at school for being super smart. He studied hard, and it paid off. He was responsible, always did his schoolwork on time, was particularly mature for his age, and wasn't the type of kid that was going out doing crazy stuff or causing problems. His friends said he was funny, but could also be introverted and shy. Sounds like most teenage boys to me. People described him as a caring, sensitive, soft-spoken, compassionate, social, inquisitive, and wicked smart kind of guy. He was a sweet and happy kid with big plans for his future. When he asked his parents for a trip to a Spanish-speaking country as a graduation present, they thought it would be the perfect opportunity for one last family vacation before their oldest son went off to college. August wanted to practice his Spanish-speaking skills. He had a love for anthropology and a deep interest in indigenous cultures. So a trip to Ecuador was perfect, and he was really looking forward to it. The family was well-traveled and experienced, so they never thought anything out of the ordinary would happen on a fun family vacation, especially losing their son. Let's go through the timeline in this case after a message from our sponsors.
Hello, is this thing on? Okay, good. I am sorry to interrupt your listening pleasure, but my name is Tiffany, and I'm here to tell you about my podcast, True Crime Connections. It's an advocacy podcast that talks with real survivors about real shit. This is the place you want to be if you've been in a toxic relationship or anything tragic has happened to you and you're looking to find your strength and healing. No two episodes are alike, but they all give you useful tools that you can take with you. So make sure to find me on your favorite podcast platform, or you can go to truecrimeconnections.com and come join the hope building community. See you there.
August, along with his mom, dad, and little brother Laith, planned an amazing 2-week family trip to Banos, Ecuador, arriving in the country on June 11th, 2013. The first week into their trip, they were enjoying the sights and taking it all in, with plans to take a long-awaited 3-day tour of remote areas in the Amazon jungle on June 17th. It was something August was especially looking forward to. The day before the trip to the Amazon, it was Father's Day. The family decided to take a short hike along the scenic trail that ran past their resort hotel in the Banos Mountains. And this was the path to the Bella Vista Cross in the Canton Banos de Agua Santa, a well-maintained, fairly wide trail they could hike in a loop, taking just a couple hours to complete. Now, at one point, the family stopped and took a photo of August during a break from the hike. In it, he's sitting down overlooking the city of Banos with a blue t-shirt and a blue sweatshirt on. His head is tilted just to the side, and he has that teenage, sullen look on his face. The kind where he's probably annoyed by his parents taking his photo again. After he went missing, a lot of people focused on this photo, being the last photo that was ever taken of him, saying he looked sad, depressed, or upset. But the truth is, to me, he just looks like an 18-year-old boy. Either way, this is when he decided to trek up ahead by about 10 minutes, with plans to meet at the top where the overlook was. Leif also ran up ahead of his parents just a few minutes later, with plans to meet at the top. And when they arrived, about 10 to 15 minutes after August should have arrived, they only found Leif waiting for them, and no sign of their older son. When they asked Leif if he'd seen August, he told them he hadn't. After waiting for a few minutes, they figured he must have gone back to the hotel for some reason, and would be waiting for them there. His dad said, "We stayed up there 10 to 15 minutes, and August wasn't around. I thought he must have gone on. You couldn't get lost. There's only 2 trails. You can see the whole town. All you have to do is go down." They really felt it was an impossible trail to get lost on. But when they didn't find August at the hotel waiting for them, they sounded the alarm. Not only did August not have any money or passport with him, he also wasn't carrying any food or even water. So they needed to find him right away. The search started immediately. Dozens of firefighters from across Ecuador, the Ecuadorian military, searchers rappelling over steep mountain slopes, helicopters, search dogs, and volunteers hit the trail August was last seen on. But there were absolutely no signs of him. There was no blood, no scuff marks along the trail, no pieces of clothing, and the search dogs never found his scent. However he vanished, whatever happened, only happened in the span of about 10 to 15 minutes. Because his family was right behind him. They hadn't heard or seen anything out of the ordinary. August's father felt there were only 2 options. He either fell off a steep cliff, or he was kidnapped. On June 20th, more than 150 police officers and volunteers searched the trail, broadening the search to different areas from where he was last seen. And still nothing at all that would even suggest August had ever been there. And by this point, authorities started treating his disappearance as a kidnapping. They felt it was unlikely he was lost or hurt along the trail because the search had been so extensive that someone would have found him or his body. They determined he was no longer on the mountain and took the search down a notch so they could pivot into searching for a kidnapping victim instead. And this shocked the town. Because although kidnappings are a fairly common occurrence in Ecuador, they didn't happen in Banos. The area was well known to be very safe for tourists. I was surprised how quickly the authorities started calling it a kidnapping, because that kind of thing can hurt tourism. I have to believe they had good reason to say that's what happened, and that they'd be able to get him back. or I just don't think they would have put that out to the media. No country wants that type of negative press. Within days, the story started getting traction back in the US, and Oklahoma's congressional delegation stepped up to help in the search. But American authorities are limited to only monitoring the investigation and search because it was in the hands of local police. The FBI can't and won't get involved unless there's evidence of a crime. After about a week, there was an apparent sighting of August in a pickup truck, and that gave his family new hope. He was spotted twice by the same witness and another time by a second witness. Both times, he was in a pickup truck heading toward the Amazon rainforest. These sightings prompted Ecuador to bring out their anti-kidnapping team for a massive search of the jungles in hopes of finding him. And yes, because kidnappings are so common, Ecuador has a special unit just for extortion and kidnappings. They know where to look for kidnappers and how to deal with them when they ask for ransom. I just don't know how I could cope if I thought someone in my family was being held by kidnappers in another country. But August's dad said, "You have to keep having the faith that he's out there, and if he's being held by somebody, that they're being nice to him and waiting to make a move." As American media began to push the story, President Barack Obama was briefed on the case and officially declared August a missing patriot, which really kicked the search into high gear. And around this time, the Ecuadorian government also offered a reward for August's safe return. August's family continued to stay in Ecuador and wait, thinking eventually the kidnappers would reach out and ask for ransom, and they'd pay it and then bring him home. But no one ever asked for a ransom or took responsibility for kidnapping August. More than 2 months later, at the end of August 2013, the Reiger family left Ecuador without their son. It was an agonizing decision to return to Oklahoma City without knowing their son's fate. They felt they searched the trail and he wasn't there, so they went home to wait for ransom from the kidnappers that they were sure took him. And even though there was no word from Ecuador, no clues, no ransom demands, and no more sightings, his family didn't give up hope. On October 15th, they posted on the Find August Reiger Facebook page, "The search for August is still going strong in Ecuador and surrounding areas. Those closely connected to the search state that progress is being made, and we are closer to finding August today than ever before. Please continue to keep August and his family in your prayers. Pray that his captors are merciful. God willing, August will be reunited with his family before the holidays." On November 29th, August turned 19 years old. The first milestone of a birthday without him must have been incredibly difficult. I can't imagine the pain his family felt. But unfortunately, it was just the first in many life milestones that August wouldn't be there for. After the holidays of August's first year missing, his family posted less and less on the Facebook page dedicated to finding him. There were no updates to post. They were still searching, but came up empty-handed every single time. 2 years later, on June 1st, 2015, they wrote, "Sometimes updates are hard, not because we have lost hope or that the search is over, but because it is a reminder that more time has passed and August is still not with his family. The beautiful thing about life is that it continues, and with each new day is another chance that he will be found." Despite the fact that August has been missing for almost 2 years, the search in Ecuador remains strong. With both a private investigative team and government search team still in place, small pieces of information have been discovered which will hopefully lead to August. These details cannot be shared as they could compromise the search. We ask for your continued prayers and support. Your prayers and positive comments have been an immense comfort for August's family. It is truly amazing how a tragedy like this can bring so many people together. The last post on the Find August Reiger page was made June 16, 2017, 4 years after he went missing. And they simply thanked people for their continued prayers to find August. Because there were no clues, no ransom demands, and no more sightings. It was as if August Reiger simply disappeared into thin air. And with disappearances like this, There are always a lot of theories. Because of the lack of clues in this case, it opens the door to all types of theories. So let's cover a few. Some people believe August ran away, but I think that's the least likely scenario. He was a smart kid, but again, he was a kid. Running away and starting a new life would be hard for anyone, but especially an 18-year-old kid who just graduated high school. Also, he didn't have anything at all with him. No extra clothes, no passport, no money, and not even a bottle of water. And he had no reason to leave his life behind. He had everything going for him, including a full ride scholarship to college and a girlfriend he loved very much. His family said there was absolutely no way he left willingly. 10 days after he went missing, his mother said, "The one thing we know for sure is August would not leave his family willingly. He has no money. We have his passport. He bought jewelry for his girlfriend and left it at the hotel. He has no extra clothes, not a single dollar. Who runs away in a foreign country without so much as a dollar? He had money in the hotel he could have taken with him and did not. He's been gone for 10 days. He would have contacted his family to let them know if he was okay if he could. He is 18. If he wanted to be gone, they couldn't make him return. He's an adult." And that is just the actual evidence. I know August and know his character, something that even most detectives would take into consideration. And for what purpose would he leave? Kicks? Kicks are hard to get with no money. So, guys, if he didn't run away, what are other options? Ecuadorian authorities believe August was kidnapped because they have no other reasonable explanation for his disappearance. Even his family thinks he would have been found by now if he had gotten lost or fallen off the trail into rugged terrain. And I could agree with the kidnapping theory, but the question is why? Most of the time, people in these scenarios are kidnapped for money, but there was never a ransom demand. So if he was kidnapped, why didn't they ask for money? Well, there could be a few reasons for that too. Maybe they never planned to ask for ransom because he was kidnapped to be used as a drug mule or trafficked for labor. Another thing to think about is that August had beautiful, long, curly hair. There's a possibility it was a crime of opportunity. Kidnappers saw him from behind and thought he was a woman. They grabbed him, and once they realized they grabbed the wrong person, they killed him. Or maybe the idea was to kidnap him for ransom, but something went wrong and August somehow died while he was with his captors. Kidnapping victims are often moved around several times, taken to a safe house, moved to an area where they have more control. So there's definitely a possibility he could have died in their custody. Or maybe they killed him because the amount of media surrounding his disappearance wasn't worth the ransom they could have gotten. But if he was kidnapped, there are still no clues. There are no scuff marks on the trail, no blood on the ground, no noise, and no one else on the trail saw anything. While it's possible authorities had information they didn't share, the only thing leading to a kidnapping that was shared was the potential sighting of August in the back of a pickup truck heading into the Amazon. The main reason I'd lean toward a kidnapping is because I don't think the Ecuadorian authorities would announce the possibility unless they had a good reason behind it. Because kidnapping an American teenager is just really bad for tourism. Some people think August is still up on that mountain somewhere. There were a few areas with steep cliffs, although from the videos I've seen, the path is really well maintained and traveled. He'd have to leave the path completely to fall somewhere. And this mountain was really, really well searched. They had hundreds of people searching for hundreds of hours. They had dogs and helicopters, and still no clues at all. I'd like to believe that if he was on the mountain somewhere, they would have found him or his body after all these years. But freak accidents happen. He could have fallen in a hole or wandered into a cave and just hasn't been found, even after all these years. The plants and vegetation surrounding the path are pretty thick and overgrown, so they could be hiding his body. Whenever someone goes missing in the woods or jungle, wild animals are often blamed when it's a mystery like this. And there are jaguars in Ecuador. But the chance that August came across one that attacked and hid his body in only a matter of minutes is really unlikely. Also, if a jaguar attacked August, I think he would have fought back. He was tall and healthy. And while a large cat can take a body away, they can't clean up an attack, so someone would have seen blood, broken bushes, or even clothing left behind. With no clues to where August could be, and no body ever found, it's impossible to say what happened to him. But what we do know is that August's family and friends still miss him tremendously and deserve to have some answers. Is Ecuador safe to visit? Some parts are totally safe, and there's some you need to avoid. A state of emergency has been in place for a few months now in the areas of El Oro, Guayas, Las Rios, Manabi, Oriana, Santa Ellen, Sucumbios, and Potts, Enriquez County, and Azue. Those areas are a bit of a mess at the moment. The military and police can seize assets, conduct inspections, or enter private property without permission. There's a high risk of kidnapping and violent crime, and Ecuador has declared a nationwide state of internal armed conflict due to crime and the military efforts to combat it. Now, due to the internal armed conflict, if you enter Ecuador by land or river from Peru or Colombia, you must present a police check in Spanish covering the last 5 years, unless you're already holding a valid visa for Ecuador. Also, tourists entering without a police check can ask immigration authorities to do a background check on their immigration at the border. Demonstrations occur frequently and can turn violent at any time. So, your best bet is to stay away from any protests or demonstrations or even large crowds. There are also nationwide energy shortages, so planned and sudden outages may occur. But what does this mean for tourists? It means if you are cautious and stay within designated tourist areas, you should be just fine. Most of the danger is in certain areas of the country and definitely not focused on hurting tourists. Crimes like theft and pickpocketing are common in every city throughout the globe. In Ecuador, criminals often target taxis, buses, transportation hubs, and crowded areas. So, like traveling in most countries in South America, don't wear expensive or flashy jewelry, don't leave valuables in your car, don't walk around alone, especially at night, and always use common sense. Beyond crime, there are a few other things to watch out for. While natural disasters are something that no one can control, you always want to research the natural risks that can happen in any place you're visiting. Earthquakes, floods, forest fires, volcanic eruptions, and droughts often strike Ecuador. So it's important to stay informed and up to date on what's going on there before you visit and while you're there, because things can change at a moment's notice. Take any warnings or news very seriously and follow any directions from authorities if something is happening. Altitude sickness affects many tourists in Ecuador because some cities are quite high above sea level. Quito, the capital city, has an elevation of almost 10,000 feet, so altitude sickness is even a possibility there. With that, people experience mild or moderate effects like headache, nausea, dizziness, fatigue, increased heart rate, and difficulty sleeping. There are some simple precautions you can take to reduce the symptoms, like ibuprofen or aspirin to relieve headaches, and anti-sickness tablets can be prescribed by your doctor before you travel. Also, taking time to acclimate and regularly drinking water can help reduce altitude sickness. Caffeine and alcohol worsen the effects, so take note of that too. There are some diseases in Ecuador to be aware of on your travels. Malaria is present, particularly in dense populated tropical areas. Some parts of the Amazon rainforest and coastal lowland areas around big cities are especially prone. You can take anti-malarial medications from your healthcare provider and remember mosquito repellents and bed nets. Dengue fever is another one transmitted by mosquitoes. Using insect repellents, wearing protective clothing, and staying in accommodations with screened windows will reduce your risk of bites. Typhoid fever is a bacterial infection that can be contracted through contaminated food and water. This is something you can get vaccinated for before you travel, especially if you think you're going into rural areas and consuming street food. A good rule of thumb is to always drink bottled water. Even if the tap water looks clean, it could contain germs or bacteria. That can cause stomach problems and other illnesses. When researching Ecuador, I learned about the rights of nature laws and animal protection laws, which I thought were pretty cool. In 2008, Ecuador became the first country to include a chapter in its constitution that recognizes the rights of nature. It states that nature has the right to exist, regenerate, and maintain its life cycles, structure, functions, and evolutionary process. And then in 2022, the High Court ruled that wild animals have legal rights, including the right to exist, develop their instincts, and be free from fear, stress, and cruelty. And now, any cruelty to animals in Ecuador can result in up to 3 years in prison. And Ecuador also prohibits the ownership of exotic animals as pets. It's also illegal to discriminate against people based on their HIV status. This aims to protect the rights of individuals living with HIV and ensures they are not subjected to discrimination in any form. One law that is particularly unique is that in certain public spaces, Ecuadorian law prohibits excessive displays of affection, such as kissing. And in 2018, a tourist was fined for kissing in a public square in Quito, although they were unaware of the local regulations. Which is why you should always research the laws wherever you're traveling. Also, Ecuador probably has different safety standards than where you're from. You're more responsible for your own safety there, because the government isn't going to handhold you with warning signs and regulations. For example, the sidewalks probably won't be blocked off when workers are throwing chunks of cinder blocks from 2 stories above. So look out for open trenches, missing manhole covers, and things falling from buildings. If you stay present and are aware of your surroundings, you'll likely be just fine. There are less building safety codes in the country. Unlike the US, dwellings don't have to be inspected and certified before people move in. So many buildings and houses are in varying stages of completion. Many homeowners live in their houses and build what they can afford when they can afford to add on. So you may see houses with exposed rebar sticking out of the top floor waiting to be finished. It's pretty common there and really nothing to worry about. Prostitution is legal and regulated in Ecuador. While it's generally frowned upon, it's not uncommon for married men to frequent some of the out of the way motels that essentially function as brothels. Large cities like Quito have dedicated red light districts where prostitutes can easily be found. I think one really important safety aspect pertaining to this case that needs to be brought up, even though it should be common sense, is to never hike alone. Now, I travel alone a lot, and this is one rule that I always abide by no matter what. There have been many times where I've thought to myself, it's a quick hike, other tourists will be around, I'll be fine going alone. But like we learned in this case and so many others, it only takes a minute for something to happen. It's decisions like that where it can cost you your life. Whether it's an accident, a wild animal, getting lost, a kidnapping, or running into a criminal. You just can't predict where or when it will happen. But it's going to turn out a lot better for you if you're not alone. Since I travel alone and love to hike, I found a few ways around hiking alone. First, there's almost always a guided tour wherever you want to go that you can jump into. Second, I often stay in hostels for this exact reason. Hostels usually have other solo female travelers, and I've always been able to find someone looking to take the same hike. And third, I've joined a lot of Facebook groups and travel groups with people also traveling who are willing to meet up for a hike. There's almost always a safer solution than hiking alone. And remember, no matter where you're traveling, make sure you inform someone about your plans before going anywhere. Tell someone reliable where you're going and what you'll be doing and when to expect you back. And my number one tip to staying alive on vacation is to pay attention to your gut. If something doesn't feel right, it isn't. August Reiger was 18 years old when he went missing from Banos, Ecuador on June 16, 2013, while on a hike with his family. He has long, shoulder-length, dark brown curly hair, a lean frame, and is fair-skinned. If you have any information at all about what happened to August Reiger or where he could be now, please reach out to your local authorities. Now is the time to speak up. And finally, remember to leave a review and rate this podcast 5 stars if you like the show, or hell, even if you don't. But either way, feel free to let me know what you think. Please follow The Last Trip on Instagram at The Last Trip Crime Pod and subscribe on Patreon to support the show. You'll get extra research, videos, photos, and updates, and even learn more about my personal travels. That's patreon.com/The Last Trip Podcast. I'm Jamie Beebe, bringing you your last trip and signing off until the next one. Thanks for listening.